Yo, what's going on, guys? We are back here today yet again. We are back. Pokemon Thunderblender777 YouTube.com. Yeah, we're here. So basically what I have today is again another one of the top 10 competitive analysis videos. This is a video I wasn't originally going to do. In fact, I was pretty adamant against doing it, despite all the people saying that they wanted me to do it, just because it's top 10 moves, and that's kind of a, it's hard to make like a, what's it called, like a video on that. For example, the move Tail Glow is absolutely fantastic, but if only Manaphy gets it, or I guess Volbeat too, because I know someone's gonna make a comment about that. But if only those two Pokemon get it, I can't really consider it a top 10 move, because, you know, only those two get it. It doesn't have like a widespread distribution that makes it so crazy for the metagame to deal with. But that being said, these 10 moves are going to be pertaining to the ORAS OU metagame. So yeah, I mean, they're great moves in general for the whole like generation as a whole, but this is more targeted towards, I guess, OU. Whatever. Let's just get into it. So move number 10, I have Volt Switch. Now this, I kind of took a while to decide what I wanted to put in the 10th, but I decided to put Volt Switch. Now Volt Switch, you know, Volt Switch U-Turn. Obviously Volt Switch is nowhere near the level of U-Turn, just because it has things that are immune to it, specifically ground types, and it's much easier to switch in because you can switch in stuff like Latios and that kind of thing. Volt Switch usually comes from weak Pokemon anyway, such as Rotom Wash, but yeah, it's pretty much fantastic on its main user, Rotom Wash, just because Rotom always lures in things like Latios and that kind of thing, and you always get off the free Volt Switch, the initiative, and Rotom just has that, like, Rotom, no ground will ever switch into Rotom, which is really, really nice. That way you can always get off your Volt Switch, because again, unless it's a Gastrodon, I mean, no one's really coming into you, so that's really, really nice. Initiative is so good in the meta right now, especially because it's like, the meta's still weird, because like, it's going towards more bulky offense and just straight hyper offense, especially with that bird spam and all that. So Rotom is really, really nice for offense and that kind of thing. Volt Switch as a whole honestly isn't that common. I've seen someone use Volt Switch Mew, which I don't like. I don't think it's that good, but I mean, that's a possibility. Other than that, Manectric has it as well, which is really, really nice for a special attacker like Manectric that can't really KO anything like right off the bat unless it's like 4 times weak. I mean, it's not super strong, but the nice thing is that it does have Volt Switch, so we can just use that to its benefit and just, you know, whittle its counters a little bit so that the next time it can take them out. Same goes for stuff like Magnezone, which is usually found running the Spec set. It can just hit and run with a very, very hard attack because it's coming off 130 base special attack. Stuff like Scarf Magneton as well. Excels is a fantastic revenge killer and that kind of thing. Other than that, I've actually been using Spec's Thunderous T lately, which is just absolutely fantastic. One of my new favorite Pokemon, because very little can switch into a Specs boosted Volt Switch like at all. If you want to go into your Latios or whatever, it's going to take up to like 25-30%, and then rocks and that kind of thing, and it's amazing. And so that's also a really nice one. In the past, I've also used defensive Zapdos with Volt Switch, which is really, really nice because, again, people love to switch stuff in like Clef and Lati in on your Zapdos. If you just Volt Switch on them, get the initiative, trap them with your T-Tar or something like that, like it can be really, really nice for you. And I can't forget the #1 god of Volt Switch, you know, Ampharos Big Fabio, just absolutely the king. But yep, I put Volt Switch at number 10. I mean, there's not really much to really describe. It's a fantastic move because of the initiative it gives. Honestly, like, I can get more in depth on the other 9 moves, but I mean, when it comes to like, I guess honorable mentions at this spot could be like Hidden Power, Protect, Substitute, Earthquake, but I just picked Volt Switch. So let's move on to move number. Okay, so at number 9 we have none other than Defog. Now people might think this is a little bit low, but you know, allow me to explain. So basically, the reason I have Defog here is just because hazards in general, what's it called? Like I guess spikes were really, really popular way back when Spadef's Scarm was literally on every single human's team. Like, people for some reason had this point in their life where they could not leave home without Ferrothorn or Skarmory. So at that point, Defog was really, really good. But like, as of now, people are, again, they're converging really towards the hyper offensive builds as well as the bulky offense builds like the Landorus, Clefable, Metagross, Keldeo type builds. Like, those are just super, super solid, and in general they don't really require spikes to do a lot of work. So Defog has pretty much dropped a little bit in viability. On top of that, people are more likely just to run Rapid Spin. Like, Starmie is still the most consistent spinner in the game, hands down. Defog, I mean, obviously Defog will always get the job done in a sense because nothing can block Defog the way you can block Rapid Spin. But it's also the fact that all good Defoggers already have their own problems. Like all Defoggers, for example, like Lati, both Latis and Zapdos destroyed by T-Tar, that kind of thing. They give up a lot of momentum. You give up an important slot on your Latios. If you go with your Defog Latios, you either A, can't use recovery if you're running like 3 attack defog, or B, you can't hit steel types because you're running dual stabs. So that's why some people run, including myself, run Draco Meteor Surf, but even then that's not ideal coverage by any means. Like you're running a Latios walled by like Among Us at that point. But yeah. That being said though, hazards are still a very, very annoying part of the what's it called, OU metagame. There are a lot of big threats in the game like Talent Flame, Thunderous, Volcanion, Charizard, Pinsir, Torn, all these things that would really always need rocks off to, you know, function fully and, you know, do the most that they can, like their job. So I mean, Defog is obviously still very, very important, keeping hazards off, because like hazards in general with all the like the new power creep and just bulkier pivots, because like again, that's what ORAS has turned into, really bulky pivots like Lando and Torn and all that, and Lottie. You don't want them coming in to take rocks. Like Rotom as well. Only really like pivot that's allowed to do that is like Clefable, because it's just not affected by rocks. But people don't want their bulky pivots having to take that initial damage and then switch into an attack. Like at that point, what's even the point of being a counter, because you're just gonna get whittled too low and you're gonna die to the next hit anyway. So Defog is still very, very important. It's just a lot harder for the metagame to work with right now. So let me just move on to the next one. Okay, now this might be funny. I have Spikes at number 8. Now, like I just said, Spikes are dropping in viability, but Spikes pretty much force Defog in a sense. Because again, a team can get by with having no Stealth Rock removal if like it doesn't have Stealth Rock weeks. Like one of my best teams was Clefable, Keldeo, Metagross, Tornadus, Landorus. And I had one more that I can't really think of. Rotom, yeah. Okay. And my only Stealth Rock week was Tornadus T, and even then I didn't run removal because it's just harder to fit. I didn't want to fit a Latios on there. I wasn't gonna do Starmie over Rotom because that would just ruin the team and that kind of thing. Like Torn, I guess it is Rocks week, but you know it's kind of like remedied by the fact that it has Regenerator and that kind of thing, and it is only 25% weak. But the thing is, Spikes absolutely force Defog. In a sense, like if your team is extremely weak to Spikes, like my team wasn't. Tornadus, Landorus, Rotom, Clefable. So 4 things not weak to Spikes. Only Keldeo and Metagross really hit by it, so it's not that much of a problem at all. But like I'm saying, it can be a very, very big nuisance if your team is heavily grounded and you have no Spikes immunity. An example would be teams that are like Hippo, Ferrothorn, Mew, Clefable, like those fat builds with absolutely like 4 or 5 grounded Pokemon, no Spikes immunity, no removal at all. Every time they come in, they're taking 30%, and those teams are just trash because they'll just lose every game they play. Because if you run into Spikes, you just lose. Like, person brings in their Skarmory or their Ferrothorn on your Hippo or your Clefable, and now they're just getting up Spikes, and you're Thunder Waving and Moon Blasting, trying to like get somewhere. Like, it's horrible. And that's why Defog is like very, very necessary if your team, again, is very grounded and very, very Spike weak. I've seen that in a lot of teams. Some teams run stuff like Diancie and Torn as like their only breakers, and then they run into stuff like Skarmory and they can't break it, and it's just walling their whole team, getting them Spikes, shuffling around. There's actually a World Cup replay I can probably SPL replay I can probably show up this. Hold on, let me find it. It's actually a good example. Hold on. Alright, so if you see this replay, both these dudes have Skarm, but if you look at Seam's team, it's heavily grounded. That being said, it still has stuff to deal with, what's it called? It still has stuff to deal with the Skarm that could be an issue. Mainly he has Keldeo, Manectric, Tran, which is not dead. But basically, Destiny Device just, what's it called? He just gets up Spikes eventually. Okay, he gets up all 3 layers of Spikes, and then he just whirlwinds for life, and he goes between literally Clef and Skarm, and he just whirlwinds everything until it dies. I just pointed at my screen as if you guys could see. But basically, as you can see, he just whirlwinds everything. Everything slowly just starts dying. Like he literally only goes between these 2 Pokemon, continues to whirlwind, just as these dies to Iron Head, goes into this, and that's just GG. Like this team is heavily grounded. It's weak to begin with because its only hard hitter was like a Scarf Keldeo, I think, and a Manectric, and I guess this is like Calm Mind or something. But like in general, his team was like too weak and it was too grounded. Like it was way too Spike weak. Destiny Device's team, on the other hand, isn't super Spike weak. Well, it is, but I assume it is Defog Latios even with the Skarm on deck. Just because, actually, I don't know. Like he only has like 2 things. Well, 2 things weak to Spikes if he evolves, or if he doesn't evolve Alakazam, but that's beyond the point. Basically what I'm trying to say is Spikes are still a very, very potent threat in the metagame. While they have dropped, teams that are bulkier and heavily grounded and that kind of thing obviously need to run Defog, you know, to be afraid of that. And Spikes in general definitely changes up a little bit, like of the team archetypes as a whole. Like for example, look at Jam. He always runs Spikes on like his, I don't know, he always runs Spikes. He has like the ultimate Ferrothorn, Skarm Boner. But that's just because Defog is so easily manipulated. Oh man, I'm talking about Spikes, but it's basically just going down to Defog. But that's because they're so like, I hope you guys can see how like heavily like bound together they both are. Basically because it's so easy to punish any Defogger, and that's what makes Spikes so good. And definitely, you know, definitely a top 10 move, even with the you know, small distribution it gets to certain Pokemon. That being said, let's just move on to the 7th best. Okay, here we have U-turn. Now, I wasn't sure if I wanted to put this move above what is number 6, but you know, we can get into that at a later time. So basically, yeah, U-turn is here at number 7. U-turn, just perfect move, near broken. In fact, nothing resists this thing, and it's gotten so bad to the point where people have started running Rocky Helmet on pretty much all their physical wall. That's like actually like one of the craziest changes, and it's definitely to be blamed by U-turn. Landorus, Tangrowth, Garchomp, all those Pokemon, they all run Helmet now because it's so easy for them to punish stuff like Scarf Landorus so that it can't, you know, continuously just U-turn around, be annoying, that kind of thing. If you're making them take 17% plus rocks every single time they come in, it becomes very, very hard for them to, you know, like do what they're trying to do. Like Helmet Landorus was something I was never on board with. I was like, this is so stupid. Why are you not running leftovers on your wall? But now I'm like, oh my god, there's like no reason never not to run it. Helmet on like your physical walls, because you're just punishing everything so quickly, and U-turn is definitely a big offender of that. The biggest users of U-turn are definitely stuff like Torn, Scizor, Landorus, Jirachi, that kind of thing, and it's just frustrating because they can get so much momentum on your team. You know it's coming all the time too, and the Pokemon that get U-turn are like mainly always have super good bulk. Like I said, Scizor, Torn, Landorus, Jirachi, they all have fantastic bulk, great typings, and it's just extremely annoying to have to switch around those things to the point where you need to run like a Helmet Mon to deal with that. Scarf Landorus as in general is just extremely frustrating, just because again its typing is so good, it's so strong. So like even if you try and switch into your thing, what if it just goes for an Earthquake and it just blows you away? If you don't have like a Tangrowth or like a Skarm, or like, it can be extremely annoying late game too. It's a complete menace. But those are probably like the main users of U-turn. Honestly, nothing else is really coming to mind right now. I mean, unless you want to say stuff like Diggersby or something like that, but like that doesn't really use it. But yeah, U-turn in general, obviously the fact that it gets you so much initiative in game, you pack that with hazards. Volt turn, bulky offense, like my absolute favorite. Like I said, the Rotom Jirachi Landorus team, just Jirachi Landorus, both have U-turn, Rotom have Volt Switch. You just keep on getting your initiative, wearing down the opponent, and it's pretty much a wrap at that point. Like, yeah, Volt turn in general, like it all goes back to bulky offense, man. The greatest playstyle of all. I'm gonna have to do a video on bulky. I mean, go ahead and tell me in the comments right now if you want to see a video on like certain playstyles in which I'll just talk about bulky offense, because it's the absolute greatest. But yeah. I kind of went off on a tangent there, but like I'm trying to say, U-turn absolutely fantastic. The fact, like, in a game so offensive, or right now, yeah, as in a generation and a tier so offensive, and the fact that ORAS again is going to a more offensive approach, the fact that you can do stuff like Volt Turn to not only punish offense, but you also just destroy bulky. You destroy bulky your team. I'm not talking bulky offense. I'm talking like fat, like Pharaoh, Skarm, Hippo. You destroy those teams with Volt Turn easily. Because they're always their checks on their walls are always forced out by the Pokemon you Volt Switch or U-turn into, and then they just keep getting worn down until it's like it's a completely unwinnable matchup. Honestly, like that Volt Turn Metacham team, if you play any fat team that doesn't have a Sableye and you lose, it's because you played bad. Like it should never lose to a fat team like that. But that's beyond the point. Like I'm saying, Volt Turn in general is definitely made so good because of how good U-turn is. So with that, let's just move on to the next one. Okay, so here I have Pursuit. Now, this might seem kind of weird, and I know some people won't agree, but I personally think Pursuit's like the best move in the game, but that's obviously not true, and I really don't have the arguments to back it up. This is a personal thing, but I thought it was fine at 6th of U-turn and that kind of thing, and it's also obviously, you know, kind of bound with is it bound? Yeah, whatever. It's kind of with Volt Turn and U-turn in the sense that Pursuit is basically like it's an unstoppable move. It's like a free kill with like it's just fantastic. Look at it. U-turn and Volt Switch, the two main things. Basically, let's look at Volt Switch. Rotom is always luring in bulkier stuff like fat grass types, Latios, that kind of thing. You go into something like a Weavile or a T-Tar, and now what? Like you can trap the Latios, you can get off a hard-hitting Banded Edge, you can get, if you're going to Weavile, that thing's even faster. It can either kill the what's it called? It can kill the bulky grass type with the ice move, or it can pursue, or it can knock off all that good stuff. Like Pursuit in general is so hard to deal with, and it all goes back to the whole Dark buff, which is just so stupid. Why'd Pokemon do this? But Pursuit is just an incredible mind game. Like I've seen, it's just incredible. Like, and it really has to do with what's it called? Weavile, I think. Weavile and T-Tar, but mainly Weavile now. Just because Weavile is so fast and it has knockoff, so people are always like, oh shit, I can't stand on this knockoff. But then you get Pursuit trapped. I hate it when it becomes Weavile versus Latios. Especially if people are running Banded, which I don't really know how I feel about the Banded set. I do think it's only good on stall, but people like to run it on like weatherless and that kind of thing. But it's so frustrating to deal with that kind of thing, because like if you want to switch out and go into your Rotom Wash, well, now you're taking a hard hitting dark type move like a knockoff, but you can also get pursuited and then you just lose your Pokemon. Like whenever it's Weavile versus Torrentee for me, it's tough because it's like, okay, I can switch out into my counter, but what if it pursues and just kills my counter to like their Pokemon? Like if I'm using Tornadus as my initial Scarf Keldeo check, but then they go into their Weavile and they just Pursuit Trap me and I die, what am I gonna do? This happened in my SPL game. The dude had Tornadus as his check to a lot of stuff. It was his main check to Charizard Y, his only thing faster, and I got it down low to like 5% and I just pursued him. He tried to switch out because he had 2 walls for me, but you know, Pursue is just such a busted move that I'm allowed to trap him. I've done that many times, like stuff like Excadrill out of Sand. Like Excadrill out of Sand is a fantastic sweeper, but once the sand ends, if you're at like 70% and Weavile comes in and they pursue you, you just die. And it all comes down to the fact that the dark buff is so stupid that Pursuit is just it's incredible. Like that's all I can really say. You trap everything. I mean, you can basically trap everything now besides like fighting types like Keldeo and that kind of thing. And even then, shit doesn't like switching into a knockoff, and stuff like T-Tar in general. Banded Edge Twit KOs Keldeo anyway. It does like 54%. And like resistances in general, the dark basically come in the forms of stuff like Hippo now, because like just because a thing resists dark moves doesn't mean it can switch into stuff unless you're like Altaria, I guess. And even then, like Weavile and T-Tar, the 2 biggest pursuiters, always come with their secondary stab, and they're so strong. Another good pursuiter I like to use a lot is Mega Scizor. Well, obviously SD Sizz is really good and almost always better than Pursuit. Pursuit does have its uses when you pair it with stuff like Keldeo and you know, Tran and that kind of thing, because you can just trap the Lottie quite easily. It's probably the best at its job because Lottie has stopped using HP Fire as much. You also have Recovery, which is really nice. You continue to do that. You can also use U-Turn, another, you know, top 10 move. And yeah, Pursuit in general is just very hard to deal with. The fact that you can pretty much guarantee a kill on a Pokemon and pretty much destroy your opponent's game plan right there, because their Pokemon that shouldn't have died basically died, or like they needed their Pokemon the most and they really couldn't save it. Like normally in Pokemon you should be able to switch out your Pokemon and keep it, but like Pursuit changes that completely, and that's why I think it's amazing. Hopefully in Gen 7 they give us all different typing Pursuits and we just break the game that way. But that being said, let's move on to the next. Okay, so at 5 I had Will-O-Wisp. Basically the only real users of Will-O-Wisp are stuff like Rotom, Heatran, Rare, Mew, Bulky Charizard X, Sableye, Talon. Actually, why'd I say only users? There's a shit ton of users of Will-O-Wisp. Gardevoir too. Slowbro has Skull, which might as well just be a burn, but okay, I can't really say that. Gengar uses Wisp too. Anyway, Will-O-Wisp is probably the best status. Well, no, Thunderwave. Shouts to your boy, but Will-O-Wisp is the best residual status, far better than Toxic, just because it hits everything. The fact that it neuters physical attackers completely, and its residual good 12.5% chip damage. Very few things can switch into it in general, like unless you go into a fire type. And again, most of the Pokemon that carry Wisp have ways to deal with the premier fire type being Tran. Besides Talonflame, Heatran of its own can just Earth Power, Rotom will Hydro Pump, Gardevoir will Focus Blast you away, Sableye will knock you off, that kind of thing. Residual damage in ORAS is really nice, again, for the bulkier teams and that kind of thing. And Wisp is just really good for wearing down a lot of steel types in general. Like Guard, for example, should always run Will-O-Wisp in my opinion, just because you can easily wear down the Scizor, Jirachi, whatever switching into you, Scarm, and then you can just keep battering it, and it's just a lot easier because they're useless now because they're not doing any damage whatsoever. And they've pretty much failed to check you very well now, because you know they're coming into an attack, taking rocks, then more damage on top of that. Gengar makes really good use of Will-O-Wisp, just because it's one of those Pokemon that really destroys people who like to try hard, like try hard predictions and that kind of thing. Because it forces a 50-50, and if you sub up, then you get off a Wisp, then you go for a Hex and you just kill them, because then Gengar gets super powerful, that kind of thing. Mew in general, the Stallbreaker set just obliterates most balanced teams if they're not rocking a Sableye, because it just taunts everybody, throws out the Wisp. Actually, Alive, where I played this dude's Stall, it's probably up by now, I think it is, yeah it is, where I played this dude's Stall, and I had Mew plus a Alomomola, and I just burned everything, and I taunted everything, and then he just really couldn't do anything. His only counter was Talonflame, and I was able to pretty much knock that thing off on the switch, keep rocks up, knock it out, and then Wisp pretty much just cleaned his team. So the majority of the Pokemon that get Wisp are basically there just to deal with like bulkier teams in general. Sableye, for example, is really annoying to them. Tran is a Pokemon that forces a lot of switches. You get off the Wisp when they switch into stuff like Landorus and that kind of thing. So yeah, Will-O-Wisp, one of the best statuses in the game, you know, probably the best one behind Thunder Wave, just because it's able to pretty much cripple any switch in. Like, that's the thing, like people switching stuff like Garchomp into Heatran, then you catch the burn, and it's like, wait, no, burn is, I hate The burn as a status is so frustrating. It also stems from Scald, because that is just the most busted move in the game, and that kind of thing. And Will-O-Wisp in general, like, it just, you're wearing down a Pokemon. It's great, it's good utility. It pretty much, even though you only burn the Pokemon, it's still alive. If it's a physical attacker, it's basically useless, like, honestly. Unless you're running a hyper offense, that Pokemon is not hurting a single Pokemon anymore. So with that, let's just move on to the, okay, so at number 4 we have please don't get mad, we have Knockoff. Okay. If you think Knockoff's the best move in the game, you're wrong. So we're gonna talk about that right now. Knockoff is not the best move. Okay, that being said, Knockoff is an incredible move. It's become a staple on many Pokemon that just, like, Landers T defensive, Tornadus T defensive, Azumarill now packs it completely to deal with stuff like Amoonguss, and it's just a good move in general to keep because it has 100% accuracy, high power, good coverage. Sableye will always have it to, you know, deal with the bulkier teams in general. Weavile, you know, the biggest offender of this because it just kills everything with dark boost, like dark stab boosted Life Orb or banded knockoff unless you have a Mega Sizz. Gliscor runs knockoff now because it's able to, you know, use SD knockoff to just basically destroy balance because now they can't even beat it 1v1. Bisharp has that retardedly strong, oh excuse me, I should have said that. It has this stupidly strong knockoff to you know, just kill everything. Yeah, so knockoff in general, like, honestly, people always say, oh, it's the item dropping that makes it so impossible to deal with. Like, okay, yes, that's a big deal. Losing leftovers sucks, but that's more for the bulkier Pokemon like Landorus and Torn that use knockoff for that function specifically. Obviously, those two Pokemon aren't using knockoff so they can hit hard. They're using it so they can hit stuff like Clef on the Switch and Rotom and just knock its leftovers so it can no longer have the longevity that it used to have. Stuff like Bisharp and Weavile use knockoff to legitimately just kill everything because the power is so absurd. A 100 base power, no drawback, yeah, 97.5 base power, no drawback move, plus stab. It's like, that's so stupid, the amount of power it has. Dark is now, without a doubt, one of the best offensive typings, top 3, no doubt. And the fact that you can just hit, like, I'm just going through Pokemon right now, stuff like Tangrowth, Skarm, Serp, like, just, okay, Serp, obviously, but just, I'm like going through Pokemon, like, none of these Pokemon resist Dark. They just, you cannot come into knockoff to begin with. You go into your Clefable or whatever, okay, there go your leftovers, and now what? You're gonna get killed by like the next couple attacks because you don't have leftovers to sponge. It's so frustrating. I've seen the worst set, the set I hate facing the most, knockoff Earthplate Landers T. Impossible to deal with. It knocks off stuff like Clef and Gastrodon's leftovers or Ferrothorn, and it just Earthquakes with the Earthplate, and it just kills everything. Like, extremely frustrating to deal with. Knockoff stuff like, it's just, I hate it. Scizor used to run knockoff back in the day as well, because that way you could knock off Tran once on the Switch, and then you get up rocks, and Tran can no longer check Scizor, because stuff like Tran totally relies on its leftovers. No one runs Rest Tran at all, because it's just not a good set, and I was thinking about this another time. Like, I think a couple of months ago I said, if Tran doesn't have its leftovers, it's basically a useless Pokemon. And honestly, that's kind of true, because it has no form of recoil. So you can't really switch into these attacks anymore, because again, you're taking rocks, unless you're like a god and you always keep rocks off, but you're taking rocks, then you're taking the initial hit, you can't do anything to rub it off. It's just, like, say you use a Scizor and you have a Latios, and say your Scizor uses knockoff on the Tran, it does about 25%. Now, how are they switching into that Life Orb Draco Meteor from Latios? Like, originally, say you had, just a Bug Bite Bullet Punch Scizor, and you know, they go into their Tran to wall you, so you have to switch out, and Tran comes in on, say, your Latios Draco Meteor, it does about 35%, they shrug it off, they take back their leftovers, then you switch out as they go for rocks in the next turn, then they get another round of leftovers, so that would mean the Tran took about 20 to 23%, but if you were to knock off that leftovers, it takes that 35 and it gets nothing back, so the next time it comes in, it takes another 35, that's 70, say rocks are up, gone, to a KO, just dead. Knockoff is, like, it's the drop of lefties that really sucks. The other items are like whatever, like you lose your Specs or your Scarf, yeah, it sucks, but you can work around it. The drop of leftovers for bulkier Pokemon really sucks, because a lot of these mons don't have good recovery. Specifically stuff like Heatran and Rotom. Well, Rotom has Pain Split, but obviously that's shaky at best. So yeah, knockoff, you know, like if you don't have a Scizor, like how are you switching into it? Extremely hard move. That being said, yes, it is only the 4th best, but like don't get it twisted. Alright, knockoff is a fantastic move. Absolutely fantastic. I just don't think it's as good as the other moves. And you know, let's just get into your boy. The greatest move of all time. Nice number 3. Oh, we call him Scald. Okay, this is the most bullshit move that Pokemon has ever what's it called, introduced. Shout outs to my man T-Wave. He's number 2, by the way. Yeah, spoiler, he's not number 1. But yeah, anyway, Scald, complete bullshit move. Like, it's the most it's on par with knockoff with the most like no drawbacks move. Okay, I guess knockoff is honestly worse because nothing is immune to it, but Scald, unless you have like a water absorb Pokemon or like Gastrodon or some shit, like it's so hard to deal with. Keldeo should not beat Venusaur and Amoonguss and Tangrowth 1v1. Okay, unless the Tangrowth Fizz Death, but like it should not beat Venusaur and Amoonguss 1v1. How is that fair? Why should that Pokemon be, or like Starmie for example, that Pokemon should never be beating those Pokemon that resist its dual stabs because of a move called Scald. On top of that, Scald also pretty much drops the quality of games as a whole. And I kind of like it for that reason, because I know for a fact I can always bring in my Latios on a Keldeo, because I know 90% of people are too like, they're so thirsty to just go for the hacks move in Scald that they will never go for the Icy Wind. The Icy Wind might just win them the game right there if they get off that 60% and keep the Latios low and then make a double. But no, they'll always click Scald because they're like, I gotta burn it, I gotta burn it. If I burn it, it's completely useless. I'm gonna go for the 30%. Like, people are crazy. They just want to get the 30% so bad. And I honestly believe Scald just throws out quality of games like a lot, because people would just continuously click it, and just like I've seen people use Scald Mew in fact just to like hit, like just to burn everything. Like even Will-O-Wisp does it, but they're like nah, Scald's basically 100% burn chance, so I'm just gonna use it and I'm gonna burn the Diancie and I'm gonna hit Heatran too. Like, it's Scald's ridiculous, and like Keldeo shouldn't be allowed to beat stuff like Azumarill, Torn, Latios, Slowbro, like Serp. Like it shouldn't be allowed to do Amoonguss. It shouldn't be allowed to do stuff like that because of moves. Scald honestly is so stupid. Shit like Suicune, I usually, like when I'm running offense, it's hard to beat Suicune. I usually rely on stuff like SD Bisharp to just hit it low enough to revenge kill it. But what if I SD on it, it Scalds, it burns me? Like, why is Tentacruel and Suicune counters to stuff like SD Bisharp and SD Lucario and Breloom and Crawdon? Why are they counters? Like, it doesn't make sense. A dark water type such as Crawdon should, in theory, beat a pure water type like Suicune, because Suicune doesn't have any super effective move or move in general to kill it. But no, Suicune has a 30% chance to win the matchup just because of a move that will like always burn. And obviously in battles, Scald has like a 4,000% burn rate. It's so, I literally hate this move like anything, because it's such a mindless, like you just click it and you get the secondary effect and you're like, hell yeah. And I do that too, obviously. Like, obviously I'm bitching about it, but like when I use Scald, again, I'm using it for the same purpose. But it's so frustrating. Like, why is my Ferrothorn being countered by Gastrodon? That doesn't make sense. I'm a grass type. I have a 4-time super effective move. I should beat it every time, but you don't. Because Scald is such a, like, honestly, I think they should ban Scald as a whole. It's so stupid. Like, why do I have to worry about switching in all my Pokemon that resist water type moves into the water type? How is that, like, how is that a balanced game? How is that a balanced move? Why should I worry about switching in my Breloom into a water type? Like, it just, Scald in general, it breaks the game. Scald breaks the game. It's the stupidest move in general. People want to fit it on it. Like, literally every single water type has it. Scald is, god damn. I'd use Scald if it was 50 base power, honestly. If Scald was 50 base power, I'd still put it on Keldeo, because you're going for the burn anyway. Like, I'd just run Hydro plus Scald, yeah, and I just use Hydro a bit more if I need to actually kill something. But again, you're always going for that juicy burn chance. Like, it's, god damn, it's so stupid that you can wear down your counters just easily with Scald. That's why Amoonguss is on stall to begin with, because one, even then, yeah, that's why I always say Keldeo beats stall, and people are like, no, it doesn't. And I'm like, yes, if you play well, Keldeo will literally beat stall. Like, Amoonguss, yes, it can switch in, yes, it walls Keldeo. But if you get the burn and you have something like Stealth Rock Clefable or Stealth Rock Heatran to always keep up rocks, how is Clef switching into a Specs Hydro Pump where rock's supposed to burn? What if you knock off its leftovers with knockoff Clefable, which I ran on a team with Keldeo? Like, it just beats stall, honestly. Obviously that's like an extreme measure, I guess. Like, you can maybe play, unless you like play like really prediction heavy, then maybe Keldeo, you know, will destroy stall, but most of the time it won't. I don't know. Like, if you're a god like me who just never misplays, then maybe. But again, yeah, stuff like Slowbro, bulky setup sweepers, you know, you're doing well, then they just Scald, they burn your, like, what? They just burn you and you just lose. Like, it's like, I bring in Breloom to deal with Slowbro, nah, Scald, burn, death, GG. It's just stupid move, busted. But that being said, knockoff Scald, two very frustrating moves, but none of them are even close to the bullshit that is Thunder Wave. This is hands down the stupidest move that has ever been introduced in Pokemon history. It wasn't so bad in Gen 5, honestly. Like, it wasn't. But come Gen 6, and literally every human being wants to run this. They're like, I have 3 moves used up on my Pokemon. You know what? Man, fuck it. I'm just gonna use it. This one dude had a team with, I clearly remember, quarterfinals of Smogon tournament, OST, last year. The dude had Manectric Rain. Okay? You know, even though you have Manectric Rain, you can still run a fire type move on your Manectric because it'll still hit the steel types hard, plus Rain is not eternal. Nah, you know what dude ran? T-Bolt, Volt Switch, HP Ice, Tech move, Thunder Wave. Like, shit, dude. Oh, I hate this move. People run it on Mega Latias. You know, it's already a garbage Pokemon, so I can understand. Thundurus, the biggest nuisance that runs T-Wave, just because it has priority on it. Stuff like Alakazam, Sash Zam with T-Wave, oh my god, just kill me now. And then the biggest offender, T-Wave Clefable, the Pokemon that is somehow able to 6-0 teams that can pack Bisharp, Ferrothorn, and Skarm on one team, but if it has T-Wave, sorry bro, you've literally lost. T-Wave is, okay, the speed drop is fine, but the fact that you have like a 25% chance, which in reality is definitely a 50% chance when it comes to the game. In fact, this will be kind of funny to some of you. I didn't actually know T-Wave's chance was 25. I legitimately thought it was 50% until January of this year. And then when someone was like, no, it's only 25, I was like, wait, what? Like, I legitimately thought it was 50% just because of how often it happens, so I just assumed, yeah, it's probably a 50% chance. T-Wave, oh my, like, there shouldn't be a move that just allows your Pokemon to just be still for a while, and people use that as a way to win as well. Like the Volturn Medi team was beast because I would just T-Wave everything with Rotom and then I just kill everything. But that was for the speed drop. That wasn't to paralyze. But the fact that people will like just go for paralysis and then they'll go into their Pokemon and try to set up like 3 times and just sweep you. Your Pokemon should not be able to just sit there still. And yes, there are countermeasures, stuff like electrics, grounds, and that kind of thing. They're immune. Stuff like Ferrothorn doesn't really care about paralysis. But even then, like, there have been so many situations where I will win the game if I break out of paralysis one time, and I'll get paired like 3 or 4 times in a row. Like no move should have all that power to where it just stops you from making it's almost worse than sleep. Well, because you can use, yeah, it is, because you can use it on multiple Pokemon and get yourself multiple free turns. Like Thunder Wave is a legitimate strategy. Look at how Joey lost that game of OST where the dude had like 3 Thunder Wave Pokemon and he just paired everything, and then he just, you know, got so many free turns to where like he couldn't win. Thunder Wave in general is a busted ass move. Honestly, jeez, it's the amount of Pokemon that like love to use it. Starmie, for example, you know, you just throw it on there, like, you know what, you know, it's my panic check. It's so hard to deal with. Paralysis in general, the metagame is totally turning into something where everyone wants to use paralysis. Klefki runs it. People run defensive Altaria with Body Slam. Give me a break. This shit is so stupid. You just throw it out there, you get your paralysis, Zapdos with discharge plus static, paralyze everything. God, paralysis should honestly be banned. If I were to ever ban one thing, it'd be paralysis, and it's a busted move. T-Wave in general, busted. Stuff like discharge and body slam, also busted. Like paralysis, your Pokemon should not be just still and unmoving. It's whatever. That being said, let's just hop into the last and final move. Some of you have probably already guessed it, but Stealth Rock is going to be number 1. Without a doubt, the most metagame changing move the last 3 gens. Was it in Gen 3? I don't think so. Whatever, I don't play those old ass 1995 gens anyway. That being said, yeah, Stealth Rock, without a doubt, the best move of the last 3 generations. I mean, the fact that it pretty much makes use of Rapid Spin and Defog because of how good it is. The fact that it invalidates some certain Pokemon and pretty much forces you to run a specific build with that Pokemon. Like Charizard, for example, can never be without something like Latios plus Starmie. You're not going to run Charizard plus Zapdos because that has synergy issues. But Charizard will always be packing something like Defog, maybe Mew. But again, Starmie, Latios, that kind of thing. Rocks in general are pretty much the bane of any defensive team because they hate being worn down. Rocks in general, like I said, it forces removal for Rocks weak teams, and it's so frustrating. Like if I need Heatran and Rotom to counter Talonflame, I hate having to take that extra 12.5% and then the boot, like then the attack. Like it's hard as shit. But that being said, yeah, rocks are just amazing. That's why stuff like Clef is so good. It doesn't take that entry hazard damage. And that's why stuff like Charizard and Volk and stuff like that and Talon, they're kept at bay. Can you imagine Volcarona if there were no rocks? It would actually be a beast. Like, it would kill everything. Actually, no, it wouldn't, because then everyone would still be running Charizard and Talonflames to deal with it, because they don't have to worry about rocks either. But that being said, like, yeah, rocks in general are just, it's fantastic move. Like, I don't know how much I have to really explain this. Rocks, basically, they changed the game by themselves. That's why Stall in general has Sableye, because it stops hazards, specifically rocks. Like, if you were able to get up rocks versus Stall, which again people have started to be able to do because they just run rocks Clef all the time, and that destroys Sableye. But if you're able to keep up rocks forever, both your teams have such a problem dealing with threats because they have to take that boost at 12.5%. That might not seem like a lot, but it adds up after a while, especially if it's not something like a Regenerator, Torn, or a Moongus that can just shrug it off. Like, it adds up quickly. But yeah, that is going to be top 10 moves. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think, what you want to see for another competitive analysis video or just non-showdown live video to do with Pokemon. Whatever you guys want to see, let me know in the comments. Let me know how you felt about this video, etc, etc. Later guys, peace.